Kilmainham Jail in Dublin, Ireland. Kilmainham Jail opened in 1796 as the new county jail for Dublin. It closed its doors in 1924. Today the building symbolizes the tradition of militant and constitutional nationalism from the Rebellion of 1798 to the Irish Civil War of 1922–23. Leaders of the rebellions of 1798, 1803, 1848, 1867 and 1916 were detained and in some cases executed here. Many members of the Irish Republican movement during the Anglo-Irish War 1919–21 were also detained in Kilmainham Jail, guarded by British troops. Names such as Henry Joy McCracken, Robert Emmet, and Evelyn Charles Stewart Parnell and the leaders of 1916 will always be associated with the building. It should not be forgotten, however, that, as a county jail, Kilmainham held thousands of ordinary men, women and children. Their crimes ranged from petty offences such as stealing food to more serious crimes such as murder or rape. Convicts from many parts of Ireland were held here for long periods, waiting to be transported to Australia. Kilmainham Jail Museum is operated and managed by the Office of Public Works. Kilmainham Jail is a former prison in Kilmainham, Dublin, Ireland. It is now a museum run by the Office of Public Works, an agency of the Government of Ireland. Many Irish revolutionaries, including the leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising, were imprisoned and executed in the prison by the British. History. When it was first built in 1796, Kilmainham Jail was called the New Jail, to distinguish it from the old prison it was intended to replace, a noisome dungeon, just a few hundred meters from the present site. It was officially called the County of Dublin Jail, and was originally run by the Grand Jury for County Dublin. Originally, public hangings took place at the front of the prison. However, from the 1820s onward very few hangings, public or private, took place at Kilmainham. A small hanging cell was built in the prison in 1891. It is located on the first floor, between the west wing and the east wing. There was no segregation of prisoners. Men, women and children were incarcerated up to 5 in each cell, with only a single candle for light and heat. Most of their time was spent in the cold and the dark, and each candle had to last for 2 weeks. Its cells were roughly 28 square meters in area. Children were sometimes arrested for petty theft, the youngest said to be a 7-year-old child, while many of the adult prisoners were transported to Australia. At Kilmainham, the poor conditions in which women prisoners were kept provided the spur for the next stage of development. As early as his 1809 report, the inspector had observed that male prisoners were supplied with iron bedsteads while females lay on straw on the flags in the cells and common halls. Half a century later there was little improvement. The women's section, located in the west wing, remained overcrowded. In an attempt to relieve the overcrowding, 30 female cells were added to the jail in 1840. These improvements had not been made long before the Great Famine occurred, and Kilmainham was overwhelmed with the increase of prisoners. Post-independence period. Kilmainham Jail was decommissioned as a prison by the Irish Free State government in 1924. Seen principally as a site of oppression and suffering, there was at this time no declared interest in its preservation as a monument to the struggle for national independence. The jail's potential function as a location of national memory was also undercut and complicated by the fact that the first 4 Republican prisoners executed by the Free State government during the Irish Civil War were shot in the prison yard. The Irish Prison Board contemplated reopening it as a prison during the 1920s, but all such plans were finally abandoned in 1929. In 1936 the government considered the demolition of the prison, but the price of this undertaking was seen as prohibitive. Republican interest in the site began to develop from the late 1930s, most notably with the proposal by the National Graves Association, a Republican organization, to preserve the site as both a museum and memorial to the 1916 Easter Rising. This proposal received no objections from the Commissioners of Public Works, who costed it at £600, and negotiations were entered into with the Department of Education about the possibility of relocating artifacts relating to the 1916 Rising housed in the National Museum to a new museum at the Kilmainham jail site. The Department of Education rejected this proposal, seeing the site as unsuitable for this purpose, and suggested instead the paintings of nationalist leaders could be installed in appropriate prison cells. However, with the advent of the emergency, the proposal was shelved for the duration of the war. An architectural survey commissioned by the Office of Public Works after World War II revealed that the prison was in a ruinous condition, with the Department of Education still intransigent to the site's conversion to a nationalist museum and with no other apparent function for the building. The Commissioners of Public Works proposed only the prison yard and those cell blocks deemed to be of national importance should be preserved, and that the rest of the site should be demolished. This proposal was not acted upon. In 1953, the Department of the Taoiseach, as part of scheme to generate employment, reconsidered the proposal of the National Graves Association to restore the prison and establish a museum at the site. However, no advance was made, and the material condition of the prison continued to deteriorate. Historical importance. Since its restoration, Kilmainham Jail has been understood as one of the most important Irish monuments of the modern period, in relation to the narrative of the struggle for Irish independence. In the period of time extending from its opening in 1796 until its decommissioning in 1924, it has been, barring the notable exceptions of Daniel O'Connell and Michael Collins, a site of incarceration of significant Irish nationalist leaders of both the constitutional and physical force traditions. Thus, its history as an institution is intimately linked with the story of Irish nationalism. The majority of the Irish leaders in the rebellions of 1798, 1803, 1848, 1867 and 1916 were imprisoned there. It also housed prisoners during the Irish War of Independence 1919–21 and many of the anti-treaty forces during the Civil War period. Charles Stewart Parnell was imprisoned in Kilmainham Jail, along with most of his parliamentary colleagues, in 1881–82 when he signed the Kilmainham Treaty with William Gladstone. Edmund Wellesha, the head guard at the prison, was convicted of undernourishing prisoners in support of the rebellion. Like us and join us at Extreme Collections for more fun and knowledge.